Welcome back, Advanced Hire. In this second lesson in the sequence of lessons on tourism in map work, we're going to look at why an area can be suitable to tourism. Remember, tourism is one of the big themes that you might be asked questions on in the map work part of the exam, and we're going to deal with this second major question within the tourism theme of why is an area suited to the industry. A quick reminder of the various questions that we can be asked. In lesson 1, in this theme, in the tourism theme, we looked at the suitability of a site to tourism. Here we are looking at the suitability of an area to tourism. In a future lesson, we'll look at why there are social, environmental and economic impacts on tourism. And finally, we'll look at how to carry out tourism sustainably. So let's get started. Here's a typical question. Pay attention to the wording at part D. Explain why this part of rural Wales is a suitable area for tourism. You may wish to refer to the whole map extract and your atlas. Well, let's deal with the easy bits first. The instruction says you may wish to refer to the whole map and your atlas. This is really not an option. You should take that as an instruction. So we're looking for examples from across the map, and we really want to incorporate our atlas into the answer as well. We are explaining, which means we're giving reasons for something. And what are we giving reasons for? We're giving reasons why this part of the country is a suitable area for tourism. Not for tourists, but for the industry of tourism. Why it's a suitable area for tourism. Why is this landscape, this physical area, suited to the industry? Okay. Here's how I would approach achieving a good score in this answer. So, some key notes for you to know. The command words is explain, as I've gone through, and that means we're going to give reasons. You must use the atlas, or you should try and incorporate it. And we want to be looking for a variety of potential features. Because they're referring to tourism, the industry, that covers quite a lot of ground. So what we need is a good few solid examples of different types of tourist activity that we can link appropriately to map evidence. So here would be 4 good examples. As usual, I'm using the site, access and situation structure, and I'm adapting it slightly to the context of this question. So what individual sites can I pick on that are going to give me good map work evidence? Well, the first one would be footpaths. They're easy to recognise, I can spot them quickly, and I can give lots of grid reference and map evidence for them. I can talk about if they're steep, I can talk about if they're flat, I can talk about their appropriateness to different activities. Are they going through woodland? Maybe that's good for mountain biking. Are they going up mountainsides? Maybe they're good for hiking and people who want to see the view. Maybe they're flatter around a lake edge, and that gives me access for people of varying levels of fitness and ability. But footpaths certainly are easily recognised, and I'm going to be able to comment on the area being appropriate to tourism because of the presence of this easily recognised feature. The next feature is scenic attractions. If you consider that people go to see named scenic attractions as a reason to visit the area. For example, people regularly go to Loch Ness just to look at Loch Ness, not to swim in it, not to fish in it or anything like that, just to look at it. Well, the named scenic attractions like a lake or a mountain top or any other named feature, these can be a good route for you scoring marks as well. Historic points of interest are a really important one because you can often expand on this quite a lot. This doesn't just include castles, abbeys, churches, country houses, etc. It also includes sites of Roman and pre-Roman history, which are indicated in Gothic or Roman script on the map. Use the key of any map to look that up if you're unsure of what I'm speaking about. Historic points of interest They allow us to talk about the historical heritage of the area's historical significance. And so finding a few of those is going to be a good idea. And then we have specific tourist attractions. I'm dealing with these last because this will be the most tempting one for you to talk about. Yep, the area is going to have lots of picnic sites, campsites, viewpoints, museums of various types, and these are typically the features that are highlighted as blue symbols on the map and are identified in the tourist attractions part of the key on the map. These are relevant, of course, to the area's value as an area for tourism, but it would be very tempting for you to just give a big long list of all the tourist attractions in the area. And what we're really asking here is, why is this area suited to tourism? Not why are tourists attracted to the area. So tourists are attracted to the area because there's a museum. But why is this area so suitable to the industry of tourism? Maybe there are several museums. Maybe there are several museums alongside some activity centres and a marina and a fishing area. So specific tourist attractions are to be dealt with in this context, and with a little bit of caution, because we're trying to justify why the area is appropriate to the industry as a whole. Of course, that leads us on to access. And that is relevant. For the area to be appropriate to the industry of tourism, it's going to need to have good road and rail connectivity. I'm not going to go into great depth and detail in this example because we've covered access many times, but you should always try and do a thorough job of backing up how people are accessing the area, linking A roads to M roads to cities, and in this case, cities with international airports would be quite sensible because, of course, we're talking about the tourism industry. The situation of the area. Again, I use these terms slightly loosely. It's just a means of structuring your answer. It's always valuable to talk about the climate. Is it suited to tourism? This is always a bit subjective, but there's lots of ways you can play it. You can compare this specific area's precipitation average to a neighbouring area's precipitation average, point out that this area has less, and therefore it is, for that reason, suited to the industry of tourism. Another way of doing this would be to say this area's temperature average in summer is X, and that makes it suited to tourism. However, in winter it's colder, and that might lead to some seasonality in the tourism industry. But the reason I'm talking greater length here is because what you want to avoid is just saying the temperature in summer is 27 degrees average, and that makes it suited to tourism. That's too limited. You need to build value into your climate commentary, and by comparing two areas or by comparing times in the year, you can do that. And finally, and you should have predicted this one, is the area in a national park or does it have some other designated conservation status? Clearly, that is going to matter to its value as an area for the tourism industry. So let's have a look at the answer. Well, this is the 2017 paper, so go get that map. Look at that past paper, the map's in the past paper. The area is hilly and it's ideal terrain for walking is my first point. Let's see how I've scored that mark. Well, I've said it's hilly. I need to evidence how I've established that. Well,
Attention please, and apologies for the interruption. COVID.
You'll gather I was briefly interrupted there. The area is hilly. How am I establishing that using map evidence? Well, I've said it's over 500 metres in places. Okay, there's my map evidence. I've also found plenty of footpaths. It's probably good if I grid reference those. And I've found 3 national trails. Probably good if I grid reference those as well. So I've packaged up a whole bunch of map evidence, and I've pointed out this is ideal terrain for walking and rambling. Still on my footpath theme, I've got a variety of terrains. I think here I could improve that by pointing out that I've got steeper areas and flatter areas appropriate for a range of experiences and ages. Grid referencing a slope over 20%, a nice steep slope, and grid referencing a nice flatter one perhaps next to a body of water would be an ideal way of evidencing that. Not only have we got footpaths though, I've got other opportunities too. So remember, I talked about named areas in the landscape. Well, we've got the River Dee, and there's other water-based activities in the area where I can grid reference specific activities. I can suggest boat trips would be a possibility on a named landscape feature. Here I've returned to my footpath theme. I'm not done with footpaths. I've spotted that there's an area of woodland. Trevor Hall Wood, grid referenced it, and I've said that it's appropriate to a specific but unique tourism land use. I think it would be ideal if I was to add some value to Trevor Hall Wood by pointing out that maybe it's got multiple paths in it, suitable to multiple different routes for mountain bikers, and it's steep, giving a sense of excitement and challenge. Remember, you're not learning a huge amount by seeing a model, by copying down a model answer. What you're learning here is the degree to which you want to package up to group together your map evidence, find several things, Trevor Hall Wood, the fact it's got multiple footpaths, and then try and add value to that. Is it steep? Is it challenging? Has it got multiple paths for multiple mountain biking routes? That's the route to scoring a mark here. This is not a word-for-word model answer. I'm taking you through the mark-winning concepts that you can score marks with. Here we have our historical site theme. So there's a number of places to visit. Notice I've found quite a few. There's an abbey at a grid reference. There's a fort at another grid reference. The 3 museums in the area added to that, and here's the crucial bit, suggest that this area may be historically important. Again, I'm making sure I'm loyal to the question. Why is the area suited to tourism? If we simply said, there are 3 museums and tourists love museums, that's completely irrelevant. What we're saying here is this area is suited to the tourism industry because it's got a variety of historical sites which I can evidence, and it's got lots of museums which are of course relevant to that historical theme, and that tells us that this area is valuable to the tourism industry. This one I've nicked from the mark scheme itself. I just think it's quite funny, so I've added it in. The preserved railway may interest steam train enthusiasts, as well as a potential day trip for families. Notice again that here, the railway, which is our map evidence, has a specific tourism interest, but I've packaged it up with something else. It's also a potential day trip for families. You're trying to say something else every time. Don't allow yourself to be limited to just simple points. The canal may be popular with cyclists who could use the traffic-free cycle route on the banks of the canal to tour the area. Again, here's an example of map evidence. There's the canal. What tourist activity is it going to be used for? Popular with cyclists. But if you put your full stop there, you're never going to get a mark. What you've got to say is, and it's appropriate to cycling because of the traffic-free cycle route that you have recognised. So in all of these examples, why is the woodland appropriate to tourism? There's lots of areas of woodland, but they're not all appropriate to mountain biking. Why is the area you've spotted appropriate to that activity? Why is the river and water areas appropriate to those activities? Why are these footpaths appropriate to tourism? Not all footpaths are appropriate to tourism. Why are these ones appropriate? That's what you're trying to evidence. Not all canals can be cycled along. What makes these canals such an ideal opportunity for the tourism activity of cycling day trips? Here's our point on access. I'm not going to labour this one as I've gone through it in some detail before, but notice how I've linked A roads to M roads. Notice how I've linked to major cities. Notice how I've made that relevant to the context of the question and the tourism industry. Here's my national park point, and I think this is one you want to switch on to. I've pointed out that the area is not in a national park, but it is close to one. So here's a good workaround if you find that your area is not in a national park, but it's near one, and that gives ideal day tripping opportunities. That's a good example of how you can adapt in the heat of the moment to twist marks where no marks appear to exist. And here is our climate point. Annual precipitation is about 1,000 mils, at least in our atlases it is, which is less than Snowdonia, which is our neighbouring national park, which has over 2,000 mils. And therefore people may prefer to stay in this area. It's got less rainfall. This is important. If you just say the annual precipitation is 1,000 mils, so tourists can come to the area, that's not like there's no connection between the magic number 1,000 millimeters and tourists wanting to come to an area. What I've done is I've compared two areas and pointed out why one area is going to be more attractive to tourists. Another way of doing this is to compare 2 times in the year and say annual precipitation is 1,000 mils in June, monthly average precipitation is 1,000 mils in June, and in December it's far higher, and this might lead to some seasonality in the tourism within the area. And again, you see how I'm adding value to that comment about climate. You can't just say the area is an average of 14 degrees in June and therefore it's perfect for tourism. Because actually, how do you know? You need to make it some kind of comparative statement. Okay, so you've seen the model answer, you've seen the notes, and you are aware now that one of the questions that could come up in the tourism theme is why an area, a whole area, is suited to the industry.